Welcome back to Eco Week 2024. My name is Sive and I'm your host for the whole week. I'm sure most of you are sick of me by now. This session is going to focus on SDG 7 and it's going to be delivered by the lovely Una from SEAI. And it's all going to be about Ireland's energy transition. So first of all, I'm from ECO-UNESCO. We were founded back in 1986 by a group of young people, and our aim is to empower the young people who are involved with us to help protect our environment. We're proud to be one of UNESCO's affiliated clubs and a Sustainable Development Goals ambassador. We're an organisation for young people and we focus on environmental education. We're a registered charity and an NGO, and we work with young people all over the island of Ireland in schools and youth groups and other places too. We try and facilitate young people to develop the skills they need to protect our environment. Like I said, today's session is all about SDG 7, which is about clean and affordable energy. And our talk today is going to be from the lovely Una from SEAI, all about Ireland's energy transition. So without further ado, I still see people sending in their schools and the number of pupils into the chat. Thanks very much. If you can keep sending those in. Thornhill College and Sculmore and Donegal, thanks a lot for sending in your numbers. If everyone else can do so as well, that'd be great. And I'm going to hand over the reins to Una now.
Okay, thanks, Sive. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen here now. So as I've said, I'm Una. I work with SEAI, and SEAI is the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. So we do a number of things. One of those things would be our education program, which is teaching people all about energy. So where our energy comes from, how we can save it, and more importantly, why we need to save it as well. So so we're going to be talking about a little bit about our energy sources and just the kind of the basics of energy as well. So our just kind of things that we're going to talk about. First of all, we're going to look at things that use energy. So where does energy, what uses energy and what is energy all about? We're then going to talk about what is sustainable energy. We'll go through the difference, so non-renewable forms of energy and renewable forms of energy. Everything like we do, it all relates to when we use energy, that all relates to climate change as well. So we'll cover a little bit about what that means. And then I suppose over to ourselves, what can we do to save energy and to help with all of this? Okay, so I'm going to start you with a very simple thing. I want you to look around your classroom and see how many different things you can see that use energy. Now, what I'm going to do with this one, you can see the two circles there. I'm going to give you a little countdown. So you have 2 minutes. So you can't talk to me at the moment. I'll if you have any questions as we go along, type them into the chat and we'll do those at the end. But at the moment, all I want you to do is talk to your own teacher. So the two circles are going to be our timer for 2 minutes. And as they count down, you'll see them turning into kind of a turquoise color. Once both the circles are turquoise, I'm going to start talking again. So what your task is, and I turn it on in a minute, is look around the classroom and name as many things as you can that use energy. And maybe you might spot things out the windows, things outside the classroom that use energy as well. And if you've covered all of those, maybe start thinking about things at home as well. So I'm going to start the timer for 2 minutes, and you can just tell your teacher, and I'll do a little recap then. Okay. And right, we're back again. So I hope you came up with lots of things there. So I'm sure you all mentioned things like the whiteboard and the laptop and the lights and maybe lights on the fire exit signs or whatever, things like this. We also have things like the radiators and just anything that moves really in the classroom. So even the door uses energy. It gets its energy from a person, but it has to use energy to move. So everything that we use every day needs some sort of energy. And that's why energy is very, very important to know about it. So we ourselves use energy. So you can't move, you can't run around, you can't think. Your heart needs to beat, your needs to pump blood around your body, you need to breathe in. So all of your organs in your body, your lungs, your heart, your liver, all of these things are your brain, they're all using energy all the time. And so when we use energy, our body's using up energy. It has to get that energy from somewhere. And our energy comes from the food that we eat. So food is our fuel, and that gives us the energy to move around, to think, also to keep our bodies warm, and and to grow, and all of these things. Now, other things use energy too. So a car uses energy. Now, a car also needs fuel, but it's a different type of fuel. So most cars are powered by either petrol or diesel. Now, we do have some electric cars as well, which are plugged in, and that we'll talk about that later. But most of them use some sort of fuel, and petrol and diesel are forms of oil, and oil is a fossil fuel. We'll talk a little bit about fossil fuels later. We also have a lot of things at home and in the classroom, things that we use every day that use electricity. And electricity is one form of energy. And electricity comes from a number of different sources. When we want something to run by electricity, we need to plug it in. And that socket is connected back to the wires that run back. And most of them are connected back to a power station, which is again burning fossil fuels to give us energy. So what is sustainable energy? So the word sustainable means lasting. So we want energy that we can continue to use. So if we're using fossil fuels that are going to run out, then that's not sustainable because we can't continue to do that. Eventually, we're going to use up all the fossil fuels. We're not going to have any more. We also need to think about the harm that we can do to our environment, to ourselves, to other people. So sustainable energy is energy that we can continue to use, but that doesn't do any harm. And that means that we're not going to use up all the sources so that people in future generations won't have any energy, or that we're going to do so much harm to our environment that it's going to be bad for us and bad for plants and animals and all that as well. So we want energy that's kind of clean energy, that's not going to pollute, and that's going to not contribute too much to climate change as well, which we'll be talking a bit more in detail. So to kind of summarize our energy, we have this little video here, and this video you'll find it on the SEAI website and on our YouTube channel. And this is just a brief summary of, we call it the story of energy, of where our energy comes from and why it's important to save it.
Many millions of years ago, even before the age of dinosaurs, ancient plants and organisms lived in swamps. As they died, they were covered by layers of mud, sand, and other materials. The great weight of these layers compressed them, turning them into fossil fuels, which we now use today as a source of energy. These include gas, oil, heat, and coal. Today, we use fossil fuels to make electricity, which powers things in our homes like lights, the TV, appliances, the kettle, and hot water. We use gas and oil to heat our homes, while petrol and diesel are used to power most of our transport. When fossil fuels are burned in the power station, they release a chemical energy inside them, which then turns to heat energy. This energy is used to boil water and create steam, which is used to turn turbines, which generate electricity. Burning any fossil fuels releases a gas called carbon dioxide, or CO2. The CO2 gets trapped in the Earth's atmosphere. The buildup of CO2 allows the sun's rays in, but doesn't let the heat out. So the more fossil fuels we burn, the more CO2 we produce, which traps more and more of the sun's heat. This global warming is causing our climate to change faster than ever before, with more extreme weather events, storms, droughts, floods, and rising sea levels. We need to look at ways to fix this problem. To help stop climate change, we need to reduce the amount of fossil fuels we use. We can all help to reduce the energy we use at home by making sure the heating isn't on too high and turning off the lights and TV when we are finished. We can also walk and cycle rather than using our cars. We need to increase the use of renewable sources of energy such as the wind and seas. They can be used to turn turbines to produce electricity. We can also directly harness the sun's energy by using solar panels for heat or electricity. We can use heat pumps to heat our homes. This cleaner and more sustainable electricity can be used to power cars and other forms of transport, as well as power and heat our homes. We all need to make changes like these to reduce the effects of climate change and ensure a cleaner, greener, and more sustainable future for everyone. To find out what you can do, visit SEAI.ie and remember, your energy matters.
Okay, so there was a lot in that video. So do go back onto the SEAI website and watch it again in your classrooms if you want to, and kind of slow it down and take it part by part. So I'm just going to go through some of the things that were kind of brought up in that video as well. So one thing I talked about was fossil fuels. Now a fuel is something that's burned to give us energy. So it's used up. So for ourselves, our fuel is our food. So the fuel, or the food, gives us energy, but it gets used up. So you might have your breakfast, but you're going to run out of energy and you need to eat at lunchtime again, and you need to eat your dinner. So we're constantly using up that fuel and having to put more in, but it gives us energy. Now, a fossil fuel, a fossil is something old. So it's any part of a plant or an animal that died a long, long time ago and got buried and became part of the earth. So fossil fuels are made from the remains of plants and animals that have been dead for a long, long time. So that's why they're called fossil fuels. Now, we have four main types of fossil fuel that we use. First one is gas. So some of you may have gas heating at home. You might have, sometimes you might have a gas cooker that runs on a cylinder like this. So gas is one of our fossil fuels, and gas is used for a number of things. So a lot of people might have gas heating in their homes. So in this case, the gas comes through the pipe and all that, and you just pay your gas bill and you don't have to have it delivered or anything. Some people might have it, might even have a gas tank, and the gas gets delivered to that. But so a lot of our heating of homes would be done through gas. As we said, some people have gas cookers, so it can be used for cooking. But a lot of the gas that we use in Ireland is used to generate electricity in our power stations. So the gas is burned in the power station. And as we saw in the video, that energy has to be changed a number of times, go through a number of changes until eventually it creates the electricity that we can use in our houses and schools and on other buildings. So that's gas. Now, oil is actually another one of our fossil fuels. And oil is used a little bit for electricity. So most of our electricity now comes from gas. We would have burnt a lot of oil in the past in our power stations. We had kind of phased that out, so we had stopped burning oil in power stations, but then there was a increased demand, so more people wanted electricity, so some of those power stations came back online. So we're kind of hoping to move away from oil altogether. Some oil, a small amount, some people might have a range that runs on oil, and in that case it might be used for cooking, but it wouldn't be that common to use oil for cooking. This is not cooking oil now, this is a different type of, this is the fossil fuel oil, which is different from the oil that we might get from vegetables. It's used for heating. A lot of people still have oil heating, so that would probably be the main source of heating. People in more recent years have moved over to gas, but still a lot of homes will be powered by oil. And generally, if you have oil heating, you'll have an oil truck that will arrive couple of times a year maybe and fill up your tank, and it runs from that. A lot of schools will have oil heating. And the main thing that oil is used for in Ireland is actually our transport. So 95% or most of our transport, that's cars, planes, trucks, buses, trains, tractors, an awful lot of our transport comes from burning petrol and diesel, which are forms of oil. Now, oil and gas are actually, so they're fossil fuels, they're actually made from the remains of animals. And those animals are little sea creatures that lived in the sea millions of years ago, 350 million years ago. So this is why they're fossils. They have been dead a long, long time. So they rotted at the bottom of the sea, they got squeezed in between layers of rock, and eventually turned into the oil and gas that then we drill up from the bottom of the sea. The other fossil fuels, these ones are made from the remains of plants, and this is coal and peat. Peat is another name for turf. Now, so the turf formed from the remains of plants that fell down into water, and then they don't quite, when they're in the water, they don't quite rot away the same as they would normally, and they build up in layers, and eventually other plants start to grow on them, and we get this peat. And peat, if it's buried in the ground for a long, long time, that will eventually turn into coal. So the peat is thousands of years old, and the coal is about 300 million years old. So again, very, very old. And the coal and the peat are mostly used maybe in fireplaces, just for an addition to the heating. If they're burned in a stove, it might be the main source of heating for the house. Wouldn't be as common. Again, if they're burned in a stove, they might be used for a small amount of cooking. And they're used in small amounts for generating electricity. So most of our electricity, we've kind of moving away from the oil, the turf, and the coal, which are the more damaging of the fossil fuels, and more towards gas. And also then we'll talk about the renewable energies as well. So fossil fuels, they're called fossil fuels because they're the remains of dead things that have been dead for a long time, plants and animals. But they also have another name because they're going to run out. We can't replace them once they're gone, and the earth isn't making more of them. Or if it is making more of them, it takes millions of years, so we won't be able to replace them in our lifetime. So because of that, we give them another name, and that's non-renewable energy sources. So they can't be replaced. Now, on the other hand, so they're the non-renewable, and then we have the renewable energy sources, and these are things like wind. So we're not going to run out of wind. Once we build a turbine, we have to have the materials to make the turbine, but once it's built, then the electricity, the energy isn't going to power that isn't going to run out. We have solar panels, which are taking light energy directly from the sun. Hydroelectric power, and this is, we've had hydroelectric power, we've been using it in Ireland since around the 1920s, the power stations. Ardna Crusha on the River Shannon was built in the 1920s. So in this case, what we do is we build a dam in the middle of a river, and as the water the water builds up on one side of the dam, and then as the dam is released, it flows downhill and it turns a wheel called a turbine inside, and that generates electricity. We also have, so wood can be kind of a renewable source of energy, as long as when we're cutting down, for cutting trees or whatever to produce wood, then those trees are replaced. And also wood, sometimes we use kind of offcuts from another process or whatever, so the wood, waste wood can be turned into a fuel source. We call that biomass. And we can also get ocean energy. Now this one could be a big potential, but it's tricky to get it right. So that's kind of still in the development stage mostly. So in Ireland, the wind would be our biggest source of renewable energy. And for our electricity generation, about 40% of our electricity at the moment is coming from renewable sources. So we're increasing that all the time, and wind would be the biggest part of that. So we have just a little still from the video I showed you earlier. So this is kind of looking at the whole idea of climate change. So we talk about carbon dioxide. So when we burn fossil fuels, we create a gas called carbon dioxide, or CO2. Now, carbon dioxide is what's called a greenhouse gas. So it acts like the glass in a greenhouse. So imagine you walked into a greenhouse on a sunny day, you would feel that it's much warmer than the outside. And that's because the light energy coming through the glass turns to heat inside, and then the glass traps that energy. So the same thing happens on the Earth, except instead of a greenhouse, we have the atmosphere around us, the air around us. So the sunlight energy comes in, gets held around the Earth. Some of it will get back out to space, but some will be trapped around the Earth. And we call that the greenhouse effect. So it's kind of the Earth is behaving like a greenhouse. Now, the greenhouse effect on its own is actually a good thing because it helps to keep our planet warm enough for us to live in. But when we burn too many fossil fuels, we add to the greenhouse effect. We increase the greenhouse effect and we trap too much heat. So we need just the right amount of heat to help our planet to function properly. But if we have too much heat, then that actually extra heat in the air changes the way the air moves. So we get a lot more extreme weather events. So we might get a lot more wind, we might get a lot more sun in some places, a lot more rain in other places. So on average, the temperature of the Earth is increasing year by year, but it doesn't mean that every place is just getting warmer. It can cause lots of different changes. So sometimes we get extreme snow and ice, and that's because of climate change. Sometimes we get really hot weather. That's also climate change. And it's all due to this greenhouse effect and the increasing of the greenhouse effect, trapping more heat around the Earth. Okay, so what can we do about it and how can we save energy? So it's important to think about where our energy comes from, but it's also important to think about it and how we get our energy. So the renewable energy is really important, but that's not something that you yourselves can actually influence at the moment. So you're not going to go home this evening and put a solar panel on the roof of your house or build a wind turbine in your garden. But there is something that everyone can do, and there's lots of things. So when we talk about kind of reducing climate change and what can we do, then it's always very important to focus on the things that you can change. Don't worry about the things other people will focus on, the renewables and all that. But you can think about, and the main thing you can do is to save energy, and we can all do this every day. So this book here, so the picture here is Climate SOS. So this is a book that was written for SEAI, and it's about a group of children in school and kind of thinking about the actions that they can take, the everyday actions that they can take to save energy. And this book is available, so you can download it from the SEAI website, so it can be shown up on the whiteboard or in class or whatever and read it that way. Or you can actually borrow a class set from the local library. So there'll be a set of 30 books and you can read it in class from that way. So it focuses on, so kind of looking at what can we do at home and classroom. So inspired by this book and the characters in it, what could we do at home and in the classroom to save energy? We could be like, so the SEAI in this case, so SEAI is the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. In the book here, SEAI is the Super Energy Activists of Ireland. So, and we have the two characters here. We have a number of children, but we also have Guzzler, who's our kind of main SEAI school's mascot. And Guzzler is well-meaning, but doesn't really think. So he's not deliberately setting out to waste energy, but sometimes he doesn't think about what he does and accidentally he wastes energy. And then we have Sparky, and Sparky is very clued in and she's thinking about it all the time. And she's kind of all the time thinking of how can I save energy through all her actions. Now, I'd say most of us kind of fit somewhere in the middle between Guzzler and Sparky. So we don't, we try our best, but we don't always get it right. So we're going to play a little game now. So it's a little quiz. So what I'm going to do, it's Guzzler versus Sparky. So I'll just show you the first one here. So I have a number of statements here. So you have to decide. So remember now, Guzzler is the one who doesn't really think and wastes the energy. And Sparky is the one who's thinking all the time about saving energy. So I'm going to read a number of statements and I want you to decide whether Guzzler said it or whether Sparky said it. So in this case, I leave the lights on in my bedroom when I go downstairs for dinner. So we have to think, is that something that might waste energy? If it's something that wastes energy, then that's Guzzler. If it's something that saves energy, that's Sparky. Now, so we can do this in a number of ways. So again, you'll be doing this in your classroom. So what you might do is maybe wherever I'm just looking at it on my screen, I can see Guzzler's on my left and Sparky's on my right. So if I think it's Guzzler, I might put my left hand up. And if I think it's Sparky, I might put my right hand up. So that's one way of doing it. Or if you have a piece of paper and a pen in front of you, you might just put down a G or an S for each one as we go along. So we're not going to keep score or anything, but we'll just and at the end of, so I'll have on each page, I'll have 6 sentences, and then we'll go back over the answers and see who said what. Okay, so are we ready to go? Yeah.
Can I ask, is Guzzler the green character?
Guzzler is the green, yes, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, just in case it's the other way around.
Yes.
Guzzler is the green character, Sparky is the dog character.
Yes, exactly. So Guzzler is a kind of a monster. Yeah, he's a green monster, and Sparky's a dog. Yep. Okay, so we're good to go. So first one then, I leave the lights on in my bedroom when I go downstairs for dinner. So who said it? Was it Guzzler or Sparky? So what I'll do is I'll give a few seconds between each one to give you a time to think. And then at the end of the 6, we'll go back over the answers. Okay, next sentence. I get a lift to school even though I live close by and there is a safe footpath. So who said it? Was it Guzzler or Sparky? Okay, next one. I wash out all containers before recycling. So that would be bottles and cans and, plastic containers, anything like that. Okay, the next one. I leave my phone charging overnight. Okay, next one. I turn the tap off when I am brushing my teeth. And the last one on this one, I limit my time on screens and make sure to play outside every day. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the answers now for each of these. Let me see who said it. Okay, so I leave the lights on in my bedroom when I go downstairs for dinner. That's Guzzler. So we don't need lights on in a room when we're not in it. Now, some cases you might, so for security or something, you might have one light on in a house, but you don't need to have lights on in a room when you're not in it generally. Okay, I get a lift to school even though I live close by and there's a safe footpath. So this is Guzzler. So Guzzler could easily, because not everyone can walk to school or cycle, but Guzzler could because he's close by and there is a safe footpath. So that's something that he could do to save energy. I wash out all containers before recycling. So very important when we're recycling that it's not just about what we put in the bin, but how we put it in. So we make sure that everything that goes in the recycling bin has to be clean. So Sparky thinks of this and washes out. I leave my phone charging overnight. Guzzler, because once the phone is charged, it doesn't need to be left in. So a phone only takes, depending on the phone, an hour or 2 to charge fully. And if it's plugged in all night, then it's going to be taking in a lot more energy. And that's a waste of energy. And it can be a fire hazard as well. It's dangerous to leave things plugged on overnight. Okay, I turn the tap off when I'm brushing my teeth. This is Sparky, because it's very important that we save water, and saving water also saves energy. So while she's brushing her teeth, she doesn't need to have the tap running all the time. She just needs to turn it on at the end, maybe to rinse her mouth and her toothbrush. I limit my time on screens and make sure to play outside every day. And this is Sparky. So when we're playing outside, we're not using any electricity. So while it's good to play sometimes on screens or do other things inside, it's nice to get outside and things that don't involve light. Okay, so hopefully we all got on well with that one. I'm going to go on to the next. So I have another 6 on the next page. And hopefully we've all got the hang of how to play the game now. Okay, so Guzzler versus Sparky again. Now, I look after my toys so they won't break quickly and I can pass them on to others when I'm finished with them. Okay, next one. I only buy new clothes when I need them and pass them on or donate them when I'm finished with them. So was it Guzzler or Sparky who said this? I put my apple core in the general waste bin when I finish eating it. I need my favorite t-shirt clean for tomorrow, so I put it in the washing machine on its own. I love playing on my games console. I play for hours every day. I unplug phones and tablets as soon as they are finished charging. Okay, so we'll go through the answers for this one. Okay, so I look after my toys so they won't break quickly, and I can pass them on to others when I'm finished with them. So this is Sparky. So Sparky looks after her toys, and then that means when she grows out of them, then she can pass them on to a younger brother or sister or a cousin or something, and someone else can play with them too. I only buy new clothes when I need them and pass them on or donate them when I'm finished with them. So a big problem with energy and with pollution and with energy use and climate change and all of these things is fast fashion. And that's when we're constantly buying new clothes and then throwing them out. So it takes a lot of energy to make those clothes. It takes a lot of materials and all that. So if we can look after our clothes, only buy them when we need them and pass them on or donate them, then we can save energy and do a lot of good as well. Okay, I put my apple core in the general waste bin when I finish eating it. This is Guzzler. So the apple core doesn't go in the general waste bin, it goes in the compost bin. And it's now actually, so some people are not aware of this, but it's actually now the law that if you have bins at home, so if you've you're paying somebody to provide bins for you, they have to give you a compost bin if you ask for it. So if you don't already have a compost bin or a brown bin at home, then you can ring up the people who have your waste and say, I want a compost bin, and they'll give it to you. So that's a good way, because if we put all that food waste into the normal bin, then actually it goes into landfill, it breaks down to create a gas called methane gas, which is a greenhouse gas. So if we can put it in the compost bin, it can all be turned back into compost that people can use on their gardens. And also it's a lot cheaper. So if you have if you're putting it in the general waste bin, you're paying a lot more for it. So if you put it in the brown bin, or if even better, if you have a compost bin at home, then you can compost your waste. Okay, next one. I need my favorite t-shirt clean for tomorrow, so I put it in the washing machine on its own. And this is Guzzler. So we should only turn on the washing machine when we have a full load, because then we're not using all that energy just to wash one thing. So in that case, Guzzler needed the t-shirt clean. He could have maybe just washed that a little hand wash on its own. I love playing on my games console. I play for hours every day. So this is Guzzler, plays for hours without switching it off and going to do something else. And I unplug phones and tablets as soon as they're finished charging. And this is Sparky. So Sparky knows that once they're finished charging, we don't need to keep putting energy into them. So we keep an eye on them and unplug them and don't leave it overnight.
Oh no, we're just running out of time now.
Oh yeah, Grant. Yep. So we'll just skip that and I'll end. Perfect. Thanks for the reminder.
No problem.
Yeah, I've stopped sharing now, have I?
Yeah. So thanks everybody for listening. I just want to remind you again to send in the name of your school and how many people you have attending. Again, I only see about 5 answers and we've got 11 schools in here right now. So there's still a few of you to send in the name of your school and how many people are attending. So while you're doing that, I'm going to share my screen again. Thanks to the guys in Camross and Niche. I see your attendance is in. Right. So that was a really interesting talk. I'll get to the questions just after this part. If you have any questions, you can send them into the chat also, and we'll read them out in a few minutes. So it's really important for ECO-UNESCO to get your feedback and your attendance, because that's how we get funding and we're able to run all of these free events that we do. So it's really, really important. If you can, please scan this QR code, teachers perhaps, to fill in our feedback form. And if not, I'm sending the form also into the chat so that you can fill it in that way either. So whichever works best for you. If you'd like to get involved in anything that ECO-UNESCO does, we have lots of different programs that you can attend, such as the Young Environmentalist Awards. This is really, really great for young people, especially primary school kids. You do an action project all throughout the year, and Then in May, you have the possibility of going to our final. So young people do action projects and enter them into the competition. The closing date for this year, I believe, is the 22nd of November, but you'll find all of the information on yea.ie or on our website, and just click the YEA tab as well. We also run lots of workshops where someone like me, for example, will come to your school and deliver a workshop about lots of different topics to do with sustainable development, like waste, fashion, marine life, and lots more. So if you're interested in booking a workshop, you can email bookings@ECO-UNESCO.ie, or if anyone in particular wants to get in contact with me, as I work on the workshops program, then I can send my email into the chat as well. We also run lots of youth groups. Mainly right now we're based in Dublin, Drogheda, Galway, Maynooth, and possibly Selbridge in the coming future. So if you want to get involved in those, you can as well. But all of this information is available on our website. So there's lots more talks coming up this Eco Week. Tomorrow we have Mohammed, who's going to be talking to us about his role in the UN. We'll be hearing a talk from Antashka, all about our coasts. And then on Friday we have nature and well-being, and about giving waste new life as well. So there's lots of different talks on all for the rest of the week. And like I said, if you want to get in contact with us about anything in general, you can contact this email address or phone number. But all of our information is readily available on our website. We also have loads of social media, so you can see what we're getting up to day by day. It's at ECO-UNESCO and everything. So if you want to find us, that's where we'll be. So that's my part said. If everybody wants to send in some questions for Una, I see some people typing already. That's great. And we can hopefully discuss some of our questions for the last 5 minutes. Someone's asking about the recording in the chat. So yes, I'm recording this session. It'll be up on ECO-UNESCO's YouTube channel shortly, and you'll be able to watch it back as many times as you wish. It'll be free to access and everything like that. So if you want to rewatch the session or you missed some of it, maybe the beginning, then you can rewatch it on our YouTube channel, which is also ECO-UNESCO on YouTube. Do we have any questions, guys? About anything to do with energy? Let's see.
Someone's typing there.
Oh, great.
Thank you there. Thank you. Very, very welcome. I'm not sure. It's a few others in her introduction. I'm not sure what that was. Because Una had a few others in her introduction. Could they be discussed and recorded? So I'm just wondering what that question is about.
Yeah, maybe just clarify what you mean. I'm not sure
what you mean by that. Yeah, what you mean.
McCullough's classroom.
Is atom smasher a source of energy? So I think you're talking about nuclear energy there. Yeah, so nuclear energy would be a source of energy. It's not something we use in Ireland. Sustainable methods. Sorry. Something maybe someone they could maybe turn on their.
Yeah, if you want to turn on your camera and ask the question in person. Yeah. I'm a bit confused as well about what you're asking in the chat.
We're not quite sure what you're asking, so just
might be easier. Just raise your hand and we'll you can ask in person.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. We have a hand up. Aoife, go ahead.
Hi.
List of topics.
Hi, Una.
Yeah.
And hi, teachers and pupils. I'm with SEAI as well, and I loved Una's presentation. She mentions a book called Climate SOS, and that book is available free for all schools. If you go to our website or if you send us an email, you can order that book. And our email is schools@seai.ie, or the website is seai.ie. Thanks.
I think we've just got clarity on that question. Yeah, so the list of topics, yeah. So I did actually cover all the list of topics. So you're talking about sustainable energy. Yeah, so we covered the fossil fuels, and then we looked at sustainable energy, which was the renewable energy methods, and that was the wind and solar panels and hydroelectric power. So it was yeah, so we did cover everything on the list, just not in a huge amount of detail. But we do provide, you know, just like ECO-UNESCO do, we do provide schools workshops, and we provide teacher CPD as well. So, you know, we can only cover a certain amount in a quick session like this, but we do send facilitators out to schools and all that, and you can get in touch through our website if you want to get, you know, have someone come out to your school and cover in some of that in more detail.
I have a question for you, Una.
Yeah.
A lot of people are upset by things like wind farms coming into their area. What can we do about that?
I suppose the thing is, like, you know, when we're trying to come into renewable energies and all that, there's always going to be a bit of conflict because, you know, things are new and all that. Like, and some people have, you know, have genuine concerns about it and all that. I think that the real key with that, and I think we need to learn from that, you know, everyone needs to learn from it, is like communication with local communities is very, very important. So you find like areas where wind farms are accepted and all that, it's because there was good communication with the local people and they were brought on board from the beginning. And when things are maybe imposed on people without that information going out in the first place, that's when we have a lot of conflict. A lot of our wind in the future as well will be going offshore. So the bigger we can get, we've a lot more wind energy off the coast and all that, and we have so a lot of our bigger wind farms, the future ones, will actually be offshore ones instead. And we do have to, with all of these things, there's always going to be issues because with renewable energies, like there's a lot more. When we burn fossil fuels, we burn the energy at the time we need it, whereas when we have renewables, there's a lot more changes we need to be able to kind of store some of that energy or move it around and all that. So there's a lot more infrastructure goes into it. So there are drawbacks to everything really. There's nothing perfect, but what we have to try and do is see, well, what problems have we had with renewable energy? And part of that is that obviously that miscommunication thing and the working with people and all that, and that's going to be our way forward. So I suppose it's just a case of trying to learn from mistakes and see how we can do it better in the future, really.
That's great. We have one more group typing, and then I think we'll finish up after this if it's a question. When is the use of oil for cars going to stop in Ireland? Is our last question.
Okay,
I think.
well that's a big one, yes, because like 95% of our cars are being powered by oil. So like when we think about electric cars and all that, they're only a very tiny percentage. Now so it's a big challenge, and we do need to, like, one of the challenges for Ireland is we need to drastically reduce. We need to halve the amount of emissions from transport, and that's so electric cars will go a certain amount towards that, but there needs to be big investment in transport, in public transport and all that as well. So we have a long way to go. It's one of the areas where we really have the more challenging, whereas we're getting there with electricity, but if we then switch everything over to electricity, then we're going to have to generate more of that electricity as well. So the big thing for people is, like, we all need to, and especially with regard to cars, it's our reliance on cars now, and some of that we can't avoid, but there is a lot. Like for shorter journeys, we can avoid a lot of transport, parking, even if you can't lift the whole way to, if you can't walk the whole way to school, you could maybe walk the last part of the journey. And that's when cars are going slow in traffic, that's when they're burning most energy. And things like, people leaving engines idling, a huge waste of energy. The other thing as well, if you look at the statistics, it shows us that our cars' engines are becoming more efficient, so they can burn less fuel. But then people are wiping out all of those benefits by buying bigger cars. So SUVs are a massive problem, like that. Instead of more efficient cars, we're buying less and less efficient cars. So we're wiping out any gains we're making. So a lot of that comes down to behavior change. Like, so it's a multi-pronged approach really to reducing our oil for transport.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks so much, Una, for your talk. if there's no more questions, then I think we can finish up for today. We've run a little bit over time, which is okay. But thanks everybody so much for listening. Like I said, there's loads more talks this week, and there's plenty of time to still sign up if you wish. And this recording will also be available to watch after. And we record every year's Eco Week, so all of last year's recordings are up on our YouTube channel as well. If you want to learn anything more about what we do or want to watch some of our old ones before we get the new ones up, they're all available as well. So thanks so much everybody for joining us. And that's the end of this session.
Thank you.
Great.